Entitled American firm thinks everything should revolve around them. This happened in 2006. Sorry, it's longer than previously expected. I was working for a big construction company in Spain, mostly civil engineering and infrastructure, but also had big architectural projects all over the world, especially in the Middle East. Anytime there was a bid for a big juicy contract in the Arabian Peninsula, this company would be there, getting enough of them to make it to the global top 100 in their field. There's a lot to be said about how they got to that point, but what matters to this story is they were slasher big. Back then I was working in the planning phase for a project in Dubai. Everything that needed to be done before actually putting boots to the ground and start moving massive amounts of dirt. I was meant to actually go to live in Dubai for a few years for this project, but I ended getting a job at a different company before that happened. Without giving too much detail, it was a multifaceted project that had a big infrastructure aspect to it and a minor architectural one attached to it. I worked in the architecture department. As it often happens with contracts of this scale, the different aspects of the project were subcontracted to smaller firms all over the world. Subcontractors were from many places, ranging from Jakarta to the east coast of the USA. This will be relevant later. My main role was to gather every plan and file the subcontractors sent, register everything for our budgeting department, and make sure it followed the approved basic project, the style Bible, and the technical specs my company, the main contractor, worked with. After all, we were the ones who had to use them later on site. If anything big needed to be changed, I would send back the files with a request for the specific alterations. If the changes were small and fast, I would do them myself, but also send them back detailing the modifications made and the reason, indexing, style, or technical, so the subcontractors could keep working on up-to-date plans. Everything with my supervisor, the lead architect, on copy, of course. Everything was fine. I enjoyed the job, and communication was fluid with all subcontractors. Then came entitled firm. Apparently, the firm we hired to do the plans for the personnel residential buildings in this huge complex had been acquired by a bigger firm from Boston. Mails were not being answered for a month, and we were starting to get worried, but then out of the blue came a big ranty one with lots of attachments. Someone I will call Bob introduced himself as the new project manager. Okay, I guess he manages this project in that firm. Then he proceeded to explain everything he wanted to change in the project. He dismissed the basic project, the one approved by the client, proposed a more modern look and a new concept. He even sent a new set of technical specs for the plans with everything from their own layout naming rules to the way every plan was indexed. Oh, and of course, he demanded everything to be expressed in imperial. I had to read it twice to fully grasp what he wanted. From his mail, I gathered Bob didn't understand this wasn't merely a residential development. For example, he wanted to change the providers for most of the installations to ones far more reliable, translation, American, without realizing the ones we chose were the ones that could deliver for all the different needs the many buildings in the project needed. I tried to reply in a polite way, explaining why some of his demands were not viable and why the rest would gravely delay the project. I honestly thought the new firm had little experience in these kind of projects and tried to be as understanding and thorough as I could so we could have them working in parallel with the rest of subcontractors ASAP. When I sent the mail, my supervisor called me. Prepare for a fun reply. Why? Did I say something rude? You didn't get where the problem is. He thinks they are the lead in this project. Right on the nail. The next day, I got a furious mail from Bob asking who the FCK I thought I was, how they could find a new construction company in a second, and that hiring cheaper foreign companies always bring trouble in the long run. After consulting briefly with my supervisor, my reply was simply a JPG with the contractor diagram that figured in the project Bible and a request for their latest plans to start making the changes so they could get up to date. He replied sending those. No apologies. Oh well, at least that was it. Nope. For the next few months, Bob continued to be a rude, loud nuisance. He obviously was so happy at the idea of being the lead on a big international development. He resented being just a small part of an even bigger project. He wasn't ready to work with others, especially foreign others. Here are some examples. He complained about not understanding what other contractors wrote in the mail chains. They all wrote English, but the kind of international English one develops when working with people from many places. He wasn't ready to infer from context or ask. He complained. He even complained about a mail that was perfectly fine. He didn't understand it. It was written by a British person. He complained about the time difference. We scheduled everything on Dubai time, but trying to mind the 11 hours of time zone range between contractors. He kept complaining about calling to the Madrid office and not finding me or the lead because he was calling at 9 p.m. He once told me my country wouldn't get out of the Middle Ages until we started to work on American time. He repeatedly tried to bypass us and contact directly other contractors to order them to make changes to their part of the project, usually to get out of implementing changes ordered by the lead, again, us. Many UAE regulations were based on American regulations, but not all. He unilaterally changed things in the projects to adapt them to US code without asking or bothering to read the actual regulations of the UAE. Bob had opinions about any code that wasn't the one he knew about, of course. At one point he commented on the budget, not his area, but we were just talking, because everything was ultra expensive. Lots of marble, high-end domotics, insulation, etc. This was the Dubai boom, and they spent money like crazies and projects that were very luxury-oriented. He kept bringing that up, and then he said something along the lines of his taxes being wasted on that. Bob thought every country in the world was subsidized by the US, and there was no way they could afford that without American help.